Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I really don't have too much more to add now that we've gotten everything started. I'm just here to be basically the fly on the wall. I'll be interacting with everyone in the chat. Happy to turn it over to Ed to kick this off. I will let you all know when we have about 15 minutes, give or take, left, and then I'll suddenly send a signal and say, "That's it. If you didn't get all of the wisdom that you could get in the last 50 minutes, that's on you." So looking forward to this and encouraging everybody, all of our guests who are here today, to be highly interactive in the chat and to ask questions, and we'll make sure that we do our best with it. So over to you, Ed.
Well, thank you so much, Binta. I got to say, I'm daunted by the title of this thing, The Smartest People in the Room. I only feel that way when I'm alone in the room. So that's it, because I like hanging out with people like Rocky. Rocky, definitely, we've been working together for a couple of years now on the Universal Hip Hop Museum, and it has been an astounding ride. I am excited to do this, even though he corralled me into doing it. It just, what he's pulled off, what he has accomplished is incredible. And so my questions, I think, are going to circle around that. And, to begin, Rocky, just give a synopsis, because we only have an hour, but a synopsis of how the museum started, the project itself started. And then I'm going to take you back further.
Okay. Well, the project started when I was working at the Gauchos. I was executive director of the Gauchos basketball program. And it became a real estate opportunity for the Gauchos to expand the program. We were working with one set of developers. They ended up losing because they couldn't finance their project. But the city of New York was so excited about the Gauchos expanding the program that they asked me to team up with another developer by the name of Young Woo. And his project was very exciting. He wanted to create
by the way, who I thought was a rapper. That was, I didn't know he was this major real estate developer. Yes, Young Woo. I was like, I've never heard of that rapper. Who's Young Woo? But anyway, go on.
So after spending a couple months with Young Woo on trying to figure out the best components to add to make his project one of the most competitive, because he was bidding on trying to take Kingsbridge Armory. And one day he just came up to me and said, I'd like to add some sort of music program to my project that would add to the value of what the Gauchos is bringing and all the other components. And he said, do you have any ideas? And I said, well, you should consider putting together, possibly a space for a hip hop museum. And then he just turned and looked at me and he said, hip hop, that sounds fantastic, but do you know anything about hip hop? And then when I told him my background, that I spent so many years in the music business, he was like, oh my goodness, I thought you was just a basketball guy. So, we quickly, assembled a small group of people, Africa Bambaataa, myself, Grandmaster Melly Mel, Joe Conzo, Grand Wizard Theodore, Curtis Blow, Mickey Benson, and Cutman LG. And we posseed together to see if we could help Young Woo win the Kingsbridge Armory. And that's where the genesis of the museum actually started. It was with Young Woo at the Kingsbridge Armory. We ended up failing because he did not win that bid. The city of New York, for some reason, thought it would be more important to create an ice skating palace, more so than a hip hop museum. So we couldn't figure that one out to save our lives, and we just said.
So I mean, this points out that the fact that the city ended up giving it to an ice skating palace in this choice location in the Bronx. Right, and I mean that reflects a lot on the history of hip hop itself, where you see this disregard for its impact, the disregard for its vast influence, and going for things that maybe the people who are making decisions about where tax dollars go or where corporate dollars go, just having a total misconception about the extended reach of hip hop and how much more integrated it is into the lives of people, then you generally understand. And I'm not gonna, and it's not because I think they're necessarily dissing hip hop, but one of the things the museum is going to show, or we've worked hard to show, is that hip hop pervades people's lifestyles, and people who don't even think they're affected by it actually are, because it is in itself so innovative. It is in itself so finely intertwined with lifestyle, with social, with political, with musicological things that you don't realize. You can be an old guy in Kansas, and when you come to the museum, we're going to show that this is a part of your life. So,
Yes.
but go back, something you said about Young Woo. Young Woo said, so what do you know about hip hop? And he was shocked by what you know about hip hop. Take me back to the 1970s. Hip hop started in August 11th, 1973. You know,
Yep. So,
Cool
you know,
Herc.
started with Cool Herc, 1520 Sedgwick Avenue, a back to school jam that Cool Herc's sister, Cindy Campbell, put together. And that party became synonymous with the birth of hip hop. I started as a young teenage DJ at the age of 15. My cousin was Pete DJ Jones, and he was one of the top mobile disc jockeys at that time. And he really, introduced to, being a mobile disc jockey, being a person that captivates the audience with just playing music in a very unique style, a way that keeps the audience excited and engaged. And, I'm a basketball kid at heart. I'm 6'8". I love basketball. But for some reason, after seeing Pete DJ Jones being the fly on the wall, as Binta said, at all his parties, because I was just a young kid, 15 years old, he allowed me to follow him to every nightclub around New York City and that's how I became involved in music. And I've been involved in music ever since. Had my own record company during the golden age of hip hop called Strong City Records. And
now, what do you call the golden age?
That's interesting because people got different.
Yeah, about to get you in trouble, but go on. What do you call the golden age? See?
So I call the golden age circa 1985 to like 1993, that time period. Hip hop commercialization of hip hop started in 1979. Right. The Sugar Hill Gang came out. That's when the Funky 4+1. That's when Curtis Blow dropped his first record, Christmas Rapping. And then after that, he put out The Breaks. So the commercialization of hip hop started in 79, and then it started to escalate, but radio was still not playing a lot of hip hop. From 1980 to 1985, Black radio did not want to play hip hop records. They day-parted it, they played it in the mix shows. They told you, get out of here with that stuff, we don't want to hear it, because, R&B was king of the hill, and we were coming out of the disco era from the late 70s. Right. And transitioning to this new art form. So I say that, golden era for me, other people would, disagree, but
you already have some in the comments. Yes. So go on.
Yeah. So 1985 to 1993. And the reason why is the acceleration, or what you like to call this little curve kind of thing, S-curve.
Yeah.
You started to see the magazines come out, like the Source magazine and Vibe magazine, and really MTV really took it to the next level, right? So MTV was like 86, 87, right. MTV Raps. And then from that point on, you really started to see the growth of hip hop started to escalate.
Yeah, but it's interesting. You made an important point. You said hip hop was out prior to that. You had, Sugar Hill Gang. That was a blip. And then you had Black radio, day parting or no parting.
Correct.
But it's fascinating now. It's a little funny, right? Because now you talk about Black radio and hip hop, and that was the focal point. It was Black radio. Now it's all radio.
Now it's all radio.
Pop music, and I remember the times, right? When yeah. Z100 or whatever, right? and you hear a rap song on Z100, you're like, whoa, did you hear that? They played that. And it
Yep,
was,
and it'll be Tone Loc or Young MC
oh,
or
right.
MC Hammer.
No
Somebody
offense,
like that.
Tone. No offense, Young MC. That's my cousin, Young MC. He just switched it. He's MC Young. But anyway, so, but it's interesting. And this is part of, yet again, I go back to what the museum is all about. Why is there a need for, we've had this, right? People come out and some individuals say, well, is there a need for a hip hop museum? Why is that? What is your, response to that?
Well, listen, I think you said it earlier, Ed, hip hop has become such a major part of today and today's lifestyle. Not just today, lifestyle in general, from when I started as a teenager to where we are today. It's incorporated into everything, advertising, it's in films, it's in television, it's in just how we speak to each other. In different parts of the world, they use hip hop to actually preserve their own native language, like in South America. So, to me, this culture that has become so important to so many people, to not have a repository where you can actually have the future generations come and learn how hip hop has influenced not just the music and the art and the dance and the lingo, but the fashion, the politics, as you said, the social economic influence that the culture has, and the storytelling, being able to use our music to enlighten and inform, people from different parts of the world, from our own community, shedding light on some of the inequities that are happening in Black and brown communities all around the world. That's what hip hop does. And we need an institution that will be dedicated to that preservation of the history and the culture, but to make sure that these stories are always accessible. Like you said, the democratization of voice, making sure that the stories that gave voice to this culture are there for future generations to have access to.
So one of the things that I was on a call yesterday talking to, a professor of physics, and, we're talking about integrating science into the museum and showing how what the originators of hip hop and what even now is happening has ties into science, physics and math and all of these things. And, one of the things that strikes me is, and I do this frequently, is I like to make things like science. You hear kids go, when am I ever going to use this? Use algebra every day of your life. You're solving for X constantly. You use, so many of these other things that seem removed, that breakdancing is physics. Somebody just put, exactly. How do they spin like that? What's happening? Centripetal force. You use it all the time without necessarily knowing what it is called in a scientific, accurate scientific terms, but you use it. And so you and I have talked about this a lot, that the museum, one of the most important reasons for the museum to exist is to tell those stories. But those stories are supposed to inform so that you can apply them for your future. And that's what we want to do. We're equipping, because, we talk about this all the time, the beginnings of hip hop. Why did it, one of the first things you were working on when we met was something called The Bronx is Burning.
Right.
Talk a little bit about that.
So when hip hop was getting ready to come into its own, before the first records were made, the kids used to go to the parks and plug into the light poles and, entertain their neighborhood friends and family. And then basically that time period was, in the Bronx, it was really one of New York City's darkest moments. The landlords, you saw a fleeing of middle-class homeowners leaving the Bronx and moving up to Westchester and other places in New York. And what was left behind were these, basically these tenements. They were building these housing projects They created the Cross Bronx Expressway, which, removed a lot of homeowners and displaced them. And the making of the Cross Bronx Expressway created this redlining of sorts. And the landlords were left with people who really did not have the same economic status, and they knew that they could not charge them higher rents. So they were losing profits. And what they started to do was they hired gang members and other people to burn down their buildings to collect the insurance money. So that phrase, "the Bronx is burning," came from that time period when the landlords were trying to make profits off of burning down their own real estate.
Right.
But the kids in the Bronx used that time period to basically say, hey, this is our neighborhood, this is our community. We're not going to be dismayed by all this urban blight and poverty. We want to show the world that we are somebody. We stand up to, I don't want to call it a form of oppression, but it was like that because, they were surrounded by everything: poverty, drugs, gangs, everything. But yet they found a way to entertain themselves and have fun. So that's why they say, hip hop rose from the ashes. It started from nothing and became something. And it was the imagination of these teenagers that really sparked this creativity, this free expression, from the graffiti artists writing on the iron horse trains, using that as their canvas, to the kids breakdancing on cardboard boxes in vacant lots and streets. The kids out there that were just taking the sound systems and using it as a form of expression, and the poetry that emerged out of that time period. Some of the greatest art of all time came out of that time period.
Yeah, and so you look at that. What always amazed me. So I was born in '67, so I'm a little bit younger. I would be the Sugar Hill, that's the and Planet Rock and everything. Not the and early. I wasn't allowed to go into New York City at that age. So in '73. So, but one of the things that always amazed me is what it grew out of was a really dark time. And it was reporting on that stuff, later with Chuck D and stuff. You have the CNN of the streets, and that's that voice that's getting out, or the message, really. The message was groundbreaking, right? But that you had the party element, that there was joy in difficult times, that there was that hope injected into the music. There's like, this is rough, but you know what? We still have something good to pull out of it. It's not saying that the bad isn't bad, but that we're bigger than the bad and that we will overcome. And that's, I think, central to what hip hop is and the fundamental spirit of it. And you talk about it's being used now in movements across the world as a means of expression, as a means of empowerment. And that is something that I believe a lot of people don't get. They don't understand that empowerment idea is central to what hip hop is about. That's what it's also brought about some not so great things, because you can be empowered the wrong way.
Absolutely, 100%. So the museum's mission is to inspire, empower, and to promote further understanding of what hip hop is. And we do that through a variety of different ways, through educational programming, through the curation of exhibits, through social impact programs that you and I are working on for mental health and for other health initiatives, trying to get a union started so that we can provide healthcare services to some of the legends in hip hop. So the museum, I like to look at the Universal Hip Hop Museum as being at the funnel of all things hip hop history and culture.
Right. And by the way, just the union is happening. That's actually the meeting last night. You were traveling, so
yeah. Tina gave me a little heads up.
There will be a hip hop union, and this is a real thing. And so, in partnership with some major organizations. And so
yes, so we're working on a variety of different things. The museum is more than a museum. I think of the museum as really part content factory so that we can work with all different levels of artistry, giving them different platforms to create books and music and film and television. Pete Nice and Paradise are working on a television show. I just spoke to Pete a little while ago, so that's huge for them. You know, we're getting ready to work with the city of New York on this week-long celebration of music and art festivals to show the world that New York City is back from this pandemic. And we're building an institution that's going to be around for, like LL Cool J just said, not for today and tomorrow, but for generations 100, 200, 3 years from now, so that they will have access to all this information. So it's an amazing project. And perhaps I'm a little naive to think that I could be the guy that create this kind of institution, but I've always thought of myself as a person who can get things done. And fortunately, I found smart people like you to help me do it.
Yeah, well, look, you're doing it. It's done. This is happening. And so I would ask, well, number one, you mentioned all of these things. And one of the things to level set, because you've been asked, and it comes up all the time, you know, what is the museum? It's a 501c3. So no one is getting rich off of this. And that's been a challenge because it's hip hop. And, you know, there are other projects out there, presumably, that are trying to do stuff that are for profit. And there's nothing wrong with for profit. And, you know, what I would ask you, because this is not a business, it's in terms of a for profit, it's not going to, you know, make you $1 billion. It's not like that. It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization. You were able to assemble amazing volunteers and people to do this, but you've been doing this for over 10 years now. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, like, man, I mean, you've been doing this as a volunteer essentially for all of this time.
Yeah.
And not getting support for a long time from the
city and
labels,
state. Yep.
the hip hop industry, the artists, or what have you. So what has it been that's kept you going, Rocky?
You know, listen, I saw, you know, early on that there was a need for hip hop to have its own space. So many people, when we first announced that this project was going to happen 10 years ago, there was a lot of interest at the ground level, you know, from the community, not so much from everywhere else, but the people who understood, who lived in the Bronx, who grew up with hip hop. When they saw the project was getting ready to start, they became excited. And that gave me a lot of energy. And then people like you and Tom Silverman and Gary Harris, rest in peace, Gary, just gave me the energy to keep going. And as time went on and we added more people to the team, I just saw that people became so excited about the mission and the vision. And they were like, I believe in it, let's do it, we can get this thing done. So everybody just jumped on, and little by little, the picture became clearer on how we were going to get to the finish line. So that's really what kept me going, was knowing that possibility of this project was becoming stronger each day that we worked on it. It wasn't that way in the very beginning. It was just really faith and hope that something would happen for this project to keep it going. And then little by little, it became this project that grew a lot of attention. And then when he put in his money into the pie, and the city council, and then Governor Cuomo put his money into the pie, I was like, here we are. We got the biggest players in New York politics supporting this project. It has to happen. The magic spice, though, was when we added Mike Ford to the team. And Mike Ford gave us the ability to actually take our vision and our ideas from paper and create these beautiful renderings and pictures. And then when we teamed up with Ralph Applebaum, who created this rendering behind me, it was like we had the best people working on the project. How could this project not happen?
So to elaborate, Mike Ford is the hip hop architect. That's what is.
He is
He's
he is
been,
the Don of hip hop architects.
right. And Ralph Applebaum is not Bonita Applebaum's uncle or dad. That is actually the leading firm for exhibition creation and
So they're the number one firm in creation of museum exhibit designs and presidential libraries.
and I'm looking in the chat here and I see, a call out from, and I see, this is the kind of thing that is so humbling, and just, the National Museum of African American Music is on this, and, welcome, amazing job they've done. They've actually, Rocky, you and I have talked about, they're an inspiration, and, long, dedication. And so this is something that, is vitally necessary. I just talked to somebody who just visits beautiful, beautiful museum, and we definitely look forward to working together on numerous things for hundreds of years. And so, thank you.
Yep. I mean, listen, we want to work with all cultural institutions that support our people. We have no, we're not trying to build a fiefdom where this is ours and, it's just us. We're trying to build a very inclusive, collaborative cultural institution that works with all types of universities and schools across the country. I just got a LinkedIn message, Ed, today
From
a guy that's in Dubai that wants us to set up something in the Emirates.
I think that might be interesting.
So
Right.
I mean,
but Rocky, you said our people, and one of the things that's key when we say our people, it's, it tends to be black and brown, but it's expanded. It's hip hop.
It's hip hop.
It's hip hop. When I was doing, the story, doing The Source, and I'm driving to Kansas, and all that, because that's, the growth of hip hop was going to be all of these. There are some black people in Kansas, I know, but you get the idea. It's like, it's all people, all hues, all.
Yeah, it's the indigenous people, it's the
right.
Asian people, it's the white people, it's the Latinos.
Right.
Hip hop is a global phenomenon. You can't go anywhere in the world, Ed, without experiencing hip hop. I don't care if you go to Moscow or Siberia, you will see hip hop over there. Yep. So, listen, we are at the center of all things that have been created around hip hop. And the museum is in the middle of all of this. And it's just amazing to me that, and that's part of the reason why we call it universal. Because when I was thinking of a name and trying to get trademarks, David Miller, our attorney, quickly told us that we couldn't just call it Hip Hop Museum because hip hop is not trademarkable. So we had to put something before it. Was it National Hip Hop Museum was already taken. So it just became, what can we do that makes it a global institution? So I quickly thought of the word universal. And
so it's not Universal Music's Museum? No,
it's not Universal Music's Museum.
No affiliation whatsoever.
No affiliation whatsoever. Sorry, Universal Music Group.
Sorry.
But it's not yours. It's the Universal Hip Hop Museum. Right. So, now that we have this, global template for a cultural institution, we've partnered with Microsoft to become our official technology partner. And we are working with MIT on some advanced technology concepts. They created the breakbeat narratives, which people can see at the Revolution of Hip Hop, which is at the Bronx Terminal Market. And we're really going to create this, what we call the Museum of the Future kind of experience. We're building a museum during a pandemic. Most people don't realize that.
Right.
Very, very, very few projects, the scope and size of our project are even being considered because of the pandemic, but construction is underway and we are building what will be a very exciting and informative and entertaining cultural institution.
So you mentioned Microsoft and the official technology partner. Um, it's interesting because Microsoft has not had a relationship with hip hop, like so many other companies. It's not Sprite. It's not Adidas. It's not, I could go
Nike.
on. Yeah.
It's not Rolex or nothing like
Right,
that.
right. And so the first one to step up being Microsoft is, and I'm going to be a big Microsoft booster right now because this support has been years long. They did a whole envisioneering process with us. We, having the sessions in 4 cities around the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe they learned a lot in that. I think they were surprised even at how truly pervasive hip hop was in the communities we went. Where was it? We went to
Los Angeles, Detroit, Atlanta, and obviously New York.
Right. And I think it was eye-opening for them. But this initiative, that they $5 million, donated to the museum, but it's coming from Brad Smith and his initiatives, which is what, AI for cultural heritage. And the vision that they're exhibiting is, when we found out, Rocky, you and I on the call, and they're telling us this,
just blew us away. Blew us away.
I think I fell out of the frame for a minute as I was right on the Zoom. But that they get that this hip hop itself is something that their technologies can be applied to broaden their reach, but efficacy for all the things they're doing, even in business. Because you look at AI, and AI has come out, and it is, it's ethnically and culturally ignorant.
Yes, it is.
And as a result, some really bad stuff has happened. So,
True.
Right. And so there's just, go on.
I look at Microsoft's suite of technology, some that I never even knew about, how we can apply that to our educational programming, our engagement with visitors when they come into, you and I think out of the box, so.
I don't even know where the box is. So
we don't have a box. I wish we had a box.
Right. Because it would be easier, right?
But, we've been so, imaginative in our thinking about what the visitor experience should be like when people come into the museum. And now that we see it, we're creating an institution that you're able to access no matter where you are in the world and have access to our collections because of the partnership that we have with Terentia, creating the digital asset management system that will be the backbone of our entire archive and collection.
Well, elaborate on that. Let the people know what's Terentia. What are they?
So Terentia is a Canadian-based company. I believe they're in Toronto, and they have a proprietary software that they build for cultural institutions that allow you to catalog all your assets, photographs, your videos, your music files, your contracts with different artists, so that, if we have something on exhibit that was loaned, we know how long we have the rights to actually use this asset. When does it expire? All stuff that is needed for us to run a very efficient and productive cultural institution is going to be managed by this digital asset management system that connects to Microsoft's AI platform that allows us to produce these immersive experiences. So, it's just game-changing all around. It's so exciting.
Right. And so you and I have talked about this, where you said, and when the building's done in 2024, we're what, 52,000 square feet, but the vision has always been that 52,000 feet should be millions of square feet effectively. Right.
And then when you think of what we're getting ready to do with Microsoft's AltSpace team, forget about it. It's just ridiculous, man. So for all the people that are in the room, watching us talk, this is my good friend Ed Young, and he has been such an amazing leader to help us connect the dots with some of these major partners like Microsoft and MIT and some of the other partners that we're getting ready to bring to the table. But we're building something that when you think of a museum, don't think of, no disrespect to any of the other New York museums, but we're not going to be having a bunch of old pictures on the wall that you're going to come in and stare at. You're really going to walk into a space that will excite you and entertain you, but most of all, give you information where and when you want it and how you want it delivered. If you want it delivered on your phone, you'll get it on your phone. If you want it delivered on your VR headset, you'll get it on your VR headset. If you wanted a 3D experience, you'll have a 3D experience. So we're thinking about all the different levels of engagement so that, you know, when you come in there, you're walking with one level of understanding about hip hop. And then when you leave, you'll have a completely different understanding. That's what we want.
Right. And that it's tuned to the individual. Somebody just put in the chat, don't forget about the oral histories. And, you know, it's interesting. I see that and I'm like, when you and I talk about this stuff, it's so finely integrated into everything. The oral histories are, you know, made manifest in both the oral history, but we can have the visual and the multimedia attached to augment what's in the oral histories, what's in, because that's so central to hip hop. One of the things that fueled, you know, music videos is hip hop is so visual by its nature. And so
if I can move my big head out the way, on the right side of my head over there is a little rendering of a stand called One Mic. And basically that One Mic station is going to be around the museum in different locations so that people can walk up and give their own oral history and tell us their own stories and become part of the narrative. Because hip hop is not just created by the people who were at the forefront or in the front of the camera, like the Grandmaster Flashes and the Chuck D's and all the graffiti artists. It's actually the people who were there in the room watching those guys too. They got a totally different perspective that they can share with everybody. So we'll be able to capture all of those stories using these installations inside the museum too.
I think of it sometimes like the Bible and the Gospels. You get the different perspectives from the different apostles and giving you the full story. That's part of the way that we talk about faith all the time, and we're, you know, and that's building this to show that universal nature of what this hip hop is. So it's, I just, you know, see, I'm gonna get way outside the box again and start talking about stuff. You're like, what is he talking about? But you know, like what we're working on with alt space and being able to take people in that 2D or 3D experience. But one of the things we're mindful of is access, right? Everybody does not have a VR headset.
This is true. I mean,
Now,
VR is as great as it is becoming, it's still very small in terms of market size.
right. Now,
So-
one of the things, but we're one of the ways that it could be extremely large in market size that's what hip hop does. You know?
It expands everything.
Right. So, you know, tell us a little bit about the, you know, alt space. What is on your mind?
Well, you know, listen, alt space is relatively new to me anyway. It's a virtual environment, you know, that allows you to create these virtual worlds using any VR device. And like Ed said, you can also get on alt space through your browser.
On your phone, your mobile phone.
Or your mobile phone. What we hope to accomplish with AltSpace is to create a virtual museum experience where we can have performances, we could do lectures, we can have conversations like you and I having in a virtual environment. We can have exhibits. We can show your NFT collection inside AltSpace.
Well, that's the crypto art collection museum. I think we're maybe the first with the crypto art collection. Andre and I donated. So
thank you for that gift. I mean, the hip hop heads that you and Andre created, working on the NEAR protocol, is just game in my opinion. What you guys did is genius. And
thank you.
everybody needs to go check that out at nft.hiphop. Go check
Thank
out
you
the
for the
hip-hop
plug.
dance.
Yeah. But yeah, it's, one of the things, speaking of like the near protocol, or what, which would be near.org, is that as we're talking about the digital asset management, one of the things that we're looking at is bringing out, NFTs, there's a lot of hype around them, but there's a lot of real functionality that is vital to what we're doing as a museum. The authentication and the provenance component, we're building that in from the beginning. And
Absolutely.
so that can accrue to the creators of the artifacts that we are exhibiting, that we are interacting with. So we're going to give them a means of the true and proper authentication process, the provenance, and add utility to it so that they can actually benefit and their estates can benefit in perpetuity. That's something where, what we want to do as a museum is, and you from the beginning, Rocky, this is talk about how the museum is going to actually benefit the hip hop community and the creatives in it writ large.
Well, the first and most important one is their legacy will be preserved for generations to come. No matter who they are, your first generation, third generation, as long as they had a cultural contribution to this art form, their stories will be told. Secondly, we're creating a platform that can help them re-engineer their creative careers, giving them access to a platform where they can earn new income. And then thirdly, we're creating these social impact platforms like healthcare and, other ways to engage the community where, we can protect them in terms of providing services that they probably don't have or can't afford. So, we're going to create this, what I hope is a global institution that will always look after those who gave so much to this culture.
Right. So we just got our 12-minute warning. That much time. Yes, I know.
Wow.
Well, I'm looking at
fast.
Yeah, I'm looking at the quotes. One of the healthcare, I think collectively, you mentioned it earlier on, but especially in light of the pandemic, a lot has been laid bare in the US, especially at the challenges our healthcare system faces. But healthcare understood properly, which should fundamentally include mental health, as and we have this issue and we're trying to address it collectively with the museum and other institutions, because mental health is perceived differently than someone getting a common cold. Why is anyone embarrassed to say, "Oh, I have a cold"? No, they also shouldn't be. It should be the same as if they're depressed or have anxiety, or especially in light of what we all are living through right now, to say that in the same way and not have a qualitative component associated with it. It should be purely quantitative. And so you set up with it last year in April, Hip Hop Loves New York, but the support went to Somos Community Care, and that's reaching out to marginalized people throughout New York City. And so talk a bit about your vision for the museum and healthcare.
Listen, we want to provide affordable healthcare to all people who are involved in the culture, so that they have access to, affordable healthcare, mental health services, like Ed said. We want them to make sure that they get checked up. A lot of, men, especially coming from our community, don't get colonoscopies. They don't get their prostate examined. We will be working with the Milken Institute. We've been trying to, work with them on projects, but we will work with them in the future.
The Prostate Cancer Foundation. All right.
Prostate Cancer Foundation, to make sure that, people just get checked up. It's a simple thing, but so many people just are, afraid or, shamed that, this goes against their manhood to get certain things checked out.
And
And we want to basically use hip hop to reach those audiences to make sure that they get checked up so that we can save more lives. And we'll use hip hop to do that.
well, I think that's an important point, that we'll use hip hop to do that, because hip hop, because it's so intertwined with people's lives, it has the ability to normalize things. Now, with so many things, that can be good and that can be bad. A lot of stuff has been normalized that I think is problematic by hip hop. However, the positive is also possible, and we aim to accentuate that. And you can make things accessible. You can make things just a part of what people are doing through hip hop, and that's such a powerful thing. It's get your colon checked, get the prostate exam, which you don't have to go through the horrible process anymore. That's the message that we're getting out there. Yeah, all the guys, you don't have to. No, it's they're new means that are quite effective.
New means.
Yeah.
Swab of the mouth.
Swab in the mouth. That's much better than, well, It's like, anyway. But my health tech, what I do is it's just simply normalizing the process of checking in with a doctor.
Right.
Making that accessible adds years to people's lives. And, selfishly for the nation as a whole, saves money, because you don't have people needing extraordinary care at such a rate. And the museum, we're gonna address these things aggressively.
Yep. And last but not least, regarding the museum's mission, we're creating a job search portal called Hip Job Juice.
Yes.
That will allow qualified candidates from our community to find quality jobs in health, tech, finance, entertainment. Because I'm just tired of that story where companies post, oh, we got all these jobs and we can't find qualified, diverse candidates, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what?
Now you can.
Now you can.
Right. Very simply. And train, because there's a training component to it. There's it's not just jobs, it's about careers too.
Correct.
We're looking to work with some unions about getting people trained so they don't get just jobs, they get careers. That's part of the museum. And because a lot of the challenges we found is lack of information, lack of access to what opportunities are actually out there for people. And the museum can be a conduit for people that way.
Yeah. And, listen, museums have a responsibility to work within the community that they serve. And that's what the Universal Hip Hop Museum is going to do. We're going to be deeply entrenched in these communities, not just locally in the Bronx, but all around the country, all around the world, offering these different types of services and programs to help people understand that hip hop is a means to enlighten and empower them for better lives so that everyone can be uplifted at the same time. That's what hip hop does.
So thank you, Rocky. And I see a prompt there. Someone said, and also affordable housing. Please elaborate on what the museum is a part of.
So we're part of this massive development project called the Bronx Point. The Bronx Point is a mixed use development project with 100% affordable housing connected to it. So right above the museum, we'll have about 542 units of 100% affordable housing that's being built by L&M Development Partners and Bay Projects, which are basically our partners in this entire project.
Right. So part of the thing that you put together is that the example, its footprint and its existence is an example of a collaborative, affordable housing community development project. We hope that this is an example for many others to be built and around the world.
This should be a prime example of how to engage the community, how to provide community benefits back to the community, so that people don't feel like just taking land and you're monetizing something that they will never have access to.
Right. Hey, my mom is on. Look at that. I'm looking at the participant.
Hello, Mom.
Sorry.
Well, Ed, I think this was fantastic. I think I learned a little bit from you, and hopefully you learned a little bit from me. And I think maybe the people in the room learned a little bit from both of us.
Hopefully, I learned from you, man. Always, always. Thank you, Rafi. Thank you.
First of all, is your mom really in the room?
She is. I think I see her phone number there. I think she's here. Yeah.
That is excellent. On behalf of Tom and the smartest people in the room, first of all, welcome into the alumni network. I think that I can say that you don't lose your smarts by becoming an alum, but you are required to use your smarts to continue to do amazing good in the world. This has been such a rich and exceptional conversation. It would be impossible to summarize it. I just want to give everybody who's been in the audience a chance to go and save the chat so that you can refer back to it, because it has so many great quotes and so much good information. Everyone needs to make a plan to get up to New York and to visit and to spend some good quality time. And I would prevail upon that. I have an ask for the participants. For anybody who has access to corporate dollars in particular, who could come in to support this good work and to support all of the things that Rocky is seeking to do for the community. I mean, this is a comprehensive program. What would it be like if our government could come up with such comprehensive programs and get it done? So whatever we can do as a community, it takes a village with these things to be supportive. We should certainly do that. Hopefully, I've been going on for long enough right now that anybody who wanted to save the chat has had the opportunity to do so. If you have not, you have probably 3 more minutes. I just want to turn it back over to Rocky and to Ed for a couple of final words, and then not Tom is going to cut us all off right at 2 o'clock. We got 2 minutes to go. Thank you guys so much, and thank you, audience, for coming and for being such an engaged group of folks in the chat.
Thank you, Binta.
Yeah, thank you, Binta. So I would say in closing, thank you to Tom Truitt, who knew the smartest people in the room, an amazing program, glad to be a part of it. The Universal Hip Hop Museum, for those people who want to learn more about it, you can go to our website, uham.org, and you can also follow us on social media, on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at UHH Museum. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, Rocky. Thank you, Rocky. This is enlightening for me. So, and Tom, thank you. I don't know what to say. This is I'm good. I'm good. This is
How do you end when it's been so great without?
I know. I'm
without
like,
go on for another
let me
hour.
go get. Do we get a mic and drop? I don't know. It's like I don't know that we.
The mic dropped so many times during the session. I'm surprised that folks can still hear it, because I heard that popping several times.
No, thank you everyone who tuned in.
And thank you, Binta, for being a great hostess.
Yes.
It has been my great pleasure. Thank you all. I hope that everybody will stay engaged, that they'll come up and they'll visit. I see in the chat that it's not possible to save the chat.
Oh, if you select all, I think
Yeah,
if you select all, it goes to your clipboard.
That's what I normally do, is I just select all, and then I can save it that way. But I know we all have different computers.
Yeah, do the right clip.
My apologies for those who weren't able to save the chat. I don't know what to tell you. I will conclude by saying it's NBA playoff season. NBA is implicitly hip hop. I hope everybody has their plans. I am rooting for the Bucks. Pray for me, because I'm surrounded by a bunch of Hawks fans.
All right. All right.
All right.
Take care.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you all.